10 years ago, I produced and directed this film called Into the Fire, which documented the Canadian police state as the G20 came to Toronto back in 2010. And back then, I really thought that I documented the absolute worst of the Canadian police state, that it couldn't possibly get any worse than what we saw in that film. Well, guys, fast forward 10 years, and now we're in this post COVID-19 84 world where the Canadian government is really ramping up their police state here in ways that I couldn't have even imagined. So in this video, we're going to take a look at just how bad the Canadian police state is getting. We're going to look at this. Alberta launches AB Trace Together app to improve contact tracing and to fight COVID-19 spread. We also see that Doug Ford is now calling for a national strategy on contact tracing of COVID-19 cases. He says we need a national plan for contact tracing. Right now, each individual province is doing it, but we need a national plan to work with the federal government and all provinces, the 10 provinces and the 3 territories, Ford said. It's absolutely critical moving forward for many reasons. So this is not just going to be a provincial thing. It's potentially going to move to become federal. And as we'll see in other places around the world like India, they are now ordering mandatory use of the COVID-19 contact tracing app for all their workers. So we're going to look at that. We're also going to take a look at this, guys, where police in Newfoundland and Labrador now have unbelievably sweeping powers to enforce the pandemic public health orders. We see they can now stop vehicles, guys. They can enter any premise they wish. They can detain people. Bill 38 gives inspectors powers to enter any premises, to take samples, conduct tests, make copies, take photos or videos. It also allows them to inspect premises, processes, books, and records. Guys, they literally want to give the police the ability to bust in your door and enter your home, all for your safety, of course, because of COVID-19. In fact, that is already happening, as we've just seen a recent story out of, I believe it's Hamilton, where police took a family from their home by force to a psychiatric facility because they were engaging in a hunger strike to protest the governmental authority and the abuse of power coming at the hands of the government. They're protesting that with a hunger strike, and sure enough, what happens? The exact thing that they're talking about in their protest, the police kick open their door, they show up, and they forcefully remove them from their home. So we're going to look at that. We're going to look at this. We're going to look at much more in this video, guys. But before we do, I'd ask that you check me out here on GoFundMe.com/PFT demonetized. If I had $1 for every subscriber, guys, we could make the MSM obsolete. And that is my goal right now, is to just do a better job than the mainstream media as they continue to fail us on their COVID-19 coverage for bringing in so much misinformation and scaring Canadians into accepting things like contact tracing. These are things we need to expose, and I want to continue to do that. If that's something you would like to help me do, please check the links on the screen or in the description below to find out how you can contribute to this GoFundMe campaign. All right, so let's start by talking a little bit about what is contact tracing. This is a new term, relatively new anyways, that I think we're going to be hearing maybe for the rest of our lives at this point. And what it is on the surface is they're saying it's to track COVID-19 patients and who they've come in contact with, but really it's bringing Big Brother into the digital era where they can now use wireless Wi-Fi technology and things like Bluetooth to see who you have been around. Using the Bluetooth, it will ping off of other devices to track who you have come in contact with. They will then contact those people and track who they came in contact with, and it goes on and on like that, exponentially. It spreads like a mesh, where they now are tracking and tracing the movements of just about all of society. It's Big Brother in a nutshell, all being done under the guise of protecting you from COVID-19. And we see that Alberta is now getting in on this. They launched their AB Trace Tracker app to improve contact tracing. We see that Alberta's Chief Medical Officer of Health said on Monday that more than 86,000 Albertans downloaded the app in its first weekend. That is really, really sad number to hear, that 86,000 brain dead sheeple would be willing to go along with something like this, just as a suggestion, mind you, that they would just welcome Big Brother into their lives like this is shocking to me. The province and Alberta Health Services launched a voluntary smartphone application Friday that will use Bluetooth to more accurately and efficiently identify contacts of a confirmed COVID-19 case. Officials say this is the first contact tracing app to launch in North America. The app is called AB Trace Together and it's free to download. The government and AHS worked with Deloitte to develop it, using similar technology used in Singapore as a model. However, the Alberta app collects less information than any other similar products being used by other jurisdictions, like Singapore, South Korea, and Australia, to fight COVID-19. It goes on to say here, once installed, the app uses a phone's Bluetooth to log any time that it comes within 2 meters of another person with the app for a cumulative 15 minutes. The phones detect each other and they exchange anonymous encrypted data, the province said. Alberta's Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Dina Hinshaw, described it as an encrypted digital handshake. No information is uploaded at that time, it's just stored on the app. Apple iOS users need to have the app running in the foreground when they leave the home, an AHS spokesperson explained, meaning their screen is unlocked and the app is visible on the screen. The app has a power-saving feature that will help conserve the battery life. For Android users, the app can be either in the foreground or the background, AHS said. And I'll put a link to this article in the description below so you can read the whole thing for yourself. But they go on to say that they're not going to violate your privacy because they're going to delete it all after the fact. They're just going to store it for now while we're in the midst of this pandemic. But how many times have we heard them say they're not going to store the data, they're going to delete it after the fact, and it turns out that they don't? We've seen similar things happen with Facebook, and I think we're going to see similar things happening with this new technology and these apps. And now we've got Doug Ford calling for, not just to be provincial wide, but he wants this to be federal. A spokesperson for Freeland, Catherine Kuplanska, said the deputy prime minister agrees that a united approach to contact tracing will be key to safe, prudent economic reopening. Thorough contact tracing is a labor-intensive containment strategy in which each person diagnosed with COVID-19 is not only isolated, but questioned about any behavior that may have caused anyone in their social circles to also be infected. Contact tracing is primarily conducted by local public health authorities, but the federal government has been trying to help strengthen the testing and tracing capacities of the provinces and territories. Ontario's medical health officer, Dr. David Williams, said on Monday there would be advantages to a national approach, but he acknowledges that it is a challenge. Yeah, it is going to be a challenge for them to convince all of Canadians to go ahead and download this thing so that all their movements can be tracked and the government can trace who they've come in contact with. This is just insane to me. But it's not a stretch of the imagination to think that this could someday become mandatory. As we said, other countries are already doing this. India orders mandatory use of COVID-19 contact tracing app for all workers. The Indian government announced on Friday that all workers, both in the public and private sectors, are required to install the nation's COVID-19 contact tracing app as it begins to ease some of its lockdown measures for low-risk areas. So likewise, it's also mandatory for residents living in containment zones to download the app, and they cannot leave these zones except for medical emergencies and for maintaining supply of essential goods and services. According to Home Affairs, local authorities in these containment zones are enforcing intensified surveillance protocols, which include contact tracing, house-to-house surveillance, as well as home and institutional quarantining of persons based on their risk assessment. These zones are the most sensitive areas of a country from the spread of COVID-19's point of view, it said. The onus for ensuring that employees and people living in containment zones install the app will be placed on the head of organizations and local authorities. respectively, said the Ministry of Home Affairs. The app, called Regia Setu, was released last month and alerts users who may have come into contact with people who have contracted COVID-19 or deemed to be at high risk. Since its release, it's been downloaded over 50 million times on Android devices, according to Google Play Store data. On the same day, the government also announced it would extend the lockdown for a further 2 weeks, but permit a considerable relaxation of restrictions in lower risk areas. So they do not have the option, guys. It is absolutely mandatory now in India for workers in these hot zones to have to download the app. Is it possible that mandatory use of apps is going to come to Canada? Absolutely, it's possible. And that's why I also wanted to point you to this nifty little device. This is a company called Silent Pocket. This is something I think we're all going to need moving forward. Tech is threatening your privacy, security, and health. Regain control by now. And we look at the products that they have to offer. Let's check out their phones. Let's look at the phone cases. Here we have, it's basically a Faraday cage. It blocks out all the signals. Faraday sleeves are the easiest and most secure option to disconnect your device from the digital realm. By placing a phone or a device inside, you're blocking cellular, GPS, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, RFID, NFC, EMR, EMF, and radiation. It's like magic. Use this soft case when you want to be disconnected, undetectable, untraceable, and unhackable. Something I would encourage people to check out. I'm going to purchase one for myself and for my wife moving forward, because I certainly don't want to be traced and tracked and data-based, with my every movement. Probably be best to just get rid of the thing altogether. But in what I do for a living, I kind of need these things, and a lot of people need these things. So I've been looking into these Faraday bags to be able to continue to use the device as I need it, but not be tracked and traced when I don't want to be. So I'll put a link to this in the description as well. Now, let's look at what's happening in Newfoundland and Labrador, because this is, getting ridiculous when it comes to the Canadian police state. The Newfoundland and Labrador government gave sweeping new powers to the police to enforce public health orders under the COVID-19 pandemic. 15 MHAs sat in the House of Assembly Tuesday to amend the Public Health Protection and Promotion Act, authoring officers to stop vehicles, enter any premise, detain people, and take them to the border if they're not complying with public health measures. You can be put on the Marine Atlantic Ferry and sent back to Nova Scotia, Premier Dwight Ball told reporters in a virtual scrum Tuesday afternoon. Bill 38 gives inspectors powers to enter any premise, take samples, conduct tests, make copies, and take photos or videos, and allows them to inspect premises, processes, books, and records. And I gotta say, when I first saw this headline, I thought to myself, well, there's some serious civil lawsuits coming down the pipe very soon. This is a violation of people's chartered rights, and there's going to be civil suits. Well, not so fast. As we see here, the law also protects lawmakers, the chief medical officer, inspectors, and peace officers, and others from personal liability. So they've already thought of this. They've realized they're going to have to protect themselves and their friends moving forward from any kind of litigation, blocking you from being able to file any kind of a civil suit. If that's not a police state in Canada, guys, I don't know what is one. And as I said, if you think this is bad, that they're saying they may do things like enter your premise, we're seeing now in places like in Ontario that they're already doing this, like they did to this family who were forcefully removed from their home and sent to a psychiatric facility because they're going on a hunger strike. And if you look at their Twitter here, they tweeted about this when asked if he believes coronavirus is a hoax. As some have suggested, Mike Pompeo, United States Secretary of State, refused to answer. And they say, does that not speak volumes to you? So it looks like they are questioning the validity of the virus, or at least the numbers. And here they link to a documentary, Fasting to Death, real stories about real heroes fighting for human rights against the government atrocities using peaceful resistance. So it looks like these people engaged in peaceful protest by starting a hunger strike to protest all these governmental overreach and the abuse of power and authority here. And as you'll see, the cops come right into their home and place them under arrest.
Here to let you know is that based on the concerns that were put forward yesterday with your report, we have contacted a judge, and the judge has issued what's called a Form 2. What that is to do, and it directs me, being a police officer, that I'm to take both of you to St. Joseph's Hospital right now for an examination.
No way.
No way.
Unfortunately, I don't have that. We don't have that discretion.
You have no right.
You have no right to do that.
You have no right.
That's what this is for. I can let you know. That's what I'm trying to say. It's a form for the Ministry of Health that's been backed by a provincial judge.
We don't care.
Okay, that's neither here nor there if you care or not. This is my authorities and this is what I have to do. So I beg of you to come cooperatively.
So it's a 17-minute long video. I'll put a link in the description so you can check it out for yourself. This is the health public official saying these officers have to do their job. These guys are just peacefully sitting there in their home, and then they eventually get placed in handcuffs and removed.
Can I explain something?
I'm going to skip ahead. We'll get to that part. And as I said, I'll put a link in the description so you can see this for yourself. And here they are, being led away from their own house in handcuffs. And these officers say it's all for their safety and for their protection, because they were peacefully protesting government's abuse of power. And what does the government do? They come in and arrest them and throw them into a psychiatric ward. Guys, if the things that you saw today do not scream Canadian police state right now, then you are just not paying attention. You've got your head in the sand. So I hope you can see with what we've shown you in this video that Canada is indeed descending into a tyrannical police state. When police can forcefully remove you from your home, when they can put forth new bills to violate your rights, when they can put out these big brother data tracking apps that may eventually become mandatory as they are in other countries, then you know that we've descended into an all-out police state in Canada. And as I've shown you, unfortunately, we're here. So, guys, I wanted to bring this to your attention, let you know just how bad things are getting behind the scenes, that the government is really ramping up their efforts to control everyone and to use this contact tracing as a digital realm of Big Brother. Really, let's call it what it is. It's Big Brother coming in to track, trace, and database every single thing you do. So we need to reject these things. We do not download the app. And by all means, please check out these Faraday cage cases. There's other companies you can check out too. This is just one of many. But check it out. Check it out for yourself. Do some research into it. I think it's really important moving forward. So yeah, I just wanted to bring all that to your attention today, guys. Please click the thumbs up button and share this video. And as I said, if you do appreciate my efforts to bring you this information, please check the links on the screen right here to my GoFundMe campaign, PFT Demonetized. If I had $1 for every subscriber, we can make the MSM obsolete. And again, that is the goal. So if you appreciate my efforts to bring you this info, again, please click the thumbs up button, share this video. And that's all for today, guys. Stay tuned. We're going to have more video reports coming soon. This is Dan Dix reporting for Press for Truth. We all want truth. The truth will set you free.